anytime anybody wants opinions about paternity leave, I'm very firm on the necessity for that almost.
Welcome back to Dad Central, parenting podcast to reduce stress and build confidence in fatherhood. I'm Drew Solon and normally joined by my co-host, Ed Gow Jr. for our live recordings. But over this summer, we're revisiting a few of our favorite conversations that are just as relevant today as when we first recorded them. And I think this is definitely one of those episodes. So today, we're talking with Penn Holderness from the Holderness family. Now, while millions know Penn for his hilarious videos online, this conversation goes much deeper. In this episode, you're going to discover why the first weeks and months with your child matter more than most dads realize, how being present early can strengthen your relationship with your child for years to come, and why paternity leave isn't just some time away from work, it's an investment in becoming the father you want to be. So whether you're expecting your first baby or looking back on those early years, I know you'll find practical insights and encouragement in this conversation. So let's jump into our discussion with Penn Holderness.
We have a new friend today.
We do. And I mean, it's really cool to be able to have this conversation with him and to hear, his experience as a father, but also some of the challenges that he's gone through and the example that he had for his fatherhood and how he's making that, a lasting legacy in his current family. And so today we're actually talking to Penn Holderness, and he is of the Holderness family. And Kim and Penn have been married for 16 years. For 7 of those years, they have chronicled their marriage and their family with funny music videos, vlogs, skits, and a podcast. So the experience that I just talked about, that was private, right? My family experienced those moments, but their family is in the public eye because their family is actually out there for you to see. So their videos have resulted in over 1 billion views and 4.5 million followers across social media. Imagine 4.5 million people watching my family or your family, but that's what's happening for them watching their family. So Penn and Kim have honed their storytelling skills with 25 combined years in the TV news business. Today, they own their own company, Holderness Family Productions, where Kim is the chief executive officer and Penn is the chief creative officer. As well as creating content for their channels, they also work alongside brands and agencies to shape product launches and marketing campaigns. Their book about improving communication in marriage was released March 30th, 2021. So it's going to be a great conversation. We touched on this in the show at Penn and Kim. They live in Raleigh, North Carolina with their children, Lola and Penn Charles, and their fluffy dog, Sunny. So looking forward to having Penn on the show and hearing what he's got to share with us.
Penn Holderness, so good to see you. So good to have you here. So good to allow you to get something down your throat before you came live with us. How's the day going?
Good. I just ate lunch in 4 minutes. Does this sound familiar to you guys?
Yes.
It sounds like a dad who's got a full plate and needs to maximize his time.
That's right.
Excellent. So we're so blessed to have you here today. You and your wife and your family do outstanding things, but we want to talk about your dad journey. So how did that dad journey start? How was it? Take us back to when you first became a father.
When I first became a father, we were in New York City. At the time, I have a great relationship with my firstborn, my daughter. I think I have a great one with both of them, but my wife was working at Inside Edition at the time. So wow. She was a news magazine reporter, and she was traveling all over the country, sometimes even the world, to do these stories. And as soon as she was able, she went back to work. I was being paid by ESPN not to work, which is a long story, but basically they were looking for a certain type of person that I'd signed a contract onto, and they changed what they were looking for, and they wanted more of like a cookie cutter Bristol, Connecticut news anchor, sports anchor, which I'm not really super into, and my wife didn't want to move to Bristol. So my contract lapsed over the first 6 months of my daughter's life, and I had a lot of free time. So Kim went back to work, and I was essentially the Manny for my daughter for the better part of her first year on earth.
Right. Wow.
Well, I mean, the first part of it, getting paid to be at home, most says, but hey, how do I get that deal? Sign me up for that. But for someone who probably is pretty ambitious, had some career goals, and wanted to move forward, what was that process like for you, and how did you adjust to that?
I hated it. It was, I would use the word emasculating. I would use the word frustrating. I did not want to not work. I wanted my career to be moving forward, not backward. But I just quickly realized that I wasn't a good fit. I was a good fit for ABC Sports, which is who signed me up. Then when they ceased to exist and moved over to ESPN, I wasn't a good fit for them. They wanted a certain type of person, and I just didn't feel comfortable being that type of person. And it's not their fault. It just, we weren't a good fit. And so, in the time that I wasn't looking after Lola in this tiny New York apartment, I was looking for jobs and trying to find a way, through the future to be able to provide for my family. Not that my wife can't do that as well, but I certainly wanted to contribute.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Penn. I want to ask you, when it seems as though transformation happened to you in regards to fatherhood, you were so focused to do career.
Mm-hmm.
You remember the moment it transformed, saying, hey, fatherhood seems to be taking a little bit more of my life?
It was pretty instant. I mean, when she was born, there are books about it, and I'm sure podcasts about the bonding that happens in the first few days, or like the moment that this child comes into the earth. And the first night, mom does most of the heavy lifting, but she was kind of a picky sleeper. And she couldn't sleep on Kim because all she wanted to do was feed, and somebody's got to sleep. So I put her like right here on the first night. And Kim slept and I stayed up. I was lucky. We had one of those like televisions in the armchairs. That's how old our hospital was. But it was like there was a great Duke UNC game on that night, and I still remember it. We watched it together.
Are you a Dookie or a UNCer?
My granddad played for UNC.
Oh,
so,
okay.
Yeah, Duke can eat your farts.
Look at the color. Look at the color of his shirt right now. It's UNC all the way.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm kidding. I know a lot of great people who went to Duke. I'm really good friends with them, except for 2 days out of the year, and then they can eat my farts.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know if does Canada have an appreciation for this rivalry? It's probably yeah.
I'm big time. Like I'm a big time college sports fan. Like I some people do, but I'm always a bigger fan of college sports than pro sports.
Think Montreal Canadiens and Toronto Maple Leafs.
Yeah,
like that.
Yeah, that's about what it is. Anyway, the bonding was immediate. I had all the time off in the world. Kim had some time off as well, but I had the ability to, come in at night and be like the night nurse, be the day nurse, like be everything that you would want a dad to be. It's why, like, I always, anytime anybody wants opinions about paternity leave, I'm very firm on the necessity for that almost. Not necessarily for the mom, but for the dad. Like if you do that, you're making an investment in the commitment that you're going to make to your child for the rest of your life. And I felt like I just lucked out into the ability to have that kind of, really 6 months of paternity leave to be a part of raising her as an infant.
Well, since you brought that up, can you talk about how important you think that time was, both for you as a dad and for your child, and how that's led to the relationship you have now?
Yeah, it definitely changed. It changed my priorities. That's obvious. Like you're doing something for yourself. You're doing something for yourself and your wife, and then now you're doing everything, literally everything, for your children for that first bit. To the point that it actually takes some time when they get to be my age of learning how to flip back and do some stuff for yourself. But at that time, like there was definitely a shift in perspective on what was important. There was, you read about it in books, there was this like chemical bonding that I think you share with your child. Seeing them smile, seeing them have, facial expressions that remind you a little bit of yourself. And with that came some fear because, and I always think about this, when you are parenting and you're parenting an 8-year-old, you remember your emotions when you were 8 years old, and you can relate to them in some sense. And then you get to be 13, you really remember puberty. We all remember puberty. We remember like all of that. So you can relate to that for sure. No one can relate to or remember your emotional state when you're an infant. So that part of it was really scary. And for that reason, I just felt the need to be around as much as possible to try to figure this out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I want to jump in a bit about you saying how important paternity leave is for dads. Can you go a little bit deeper on that? Because we haven't had a chance to talk about it too much, but you sound very passionate about it. I'd just like you to share a little bit deeper on that.
This is your child's first moments on earth. And while the belief is that it doesn't really affect you in a way that you can remember, the idea of imprinting is true in at least every mammal, I think. Like you're leaving an imprint on that child, and that child is leaving, I believe, also an imprint on you and the person that you want to be. And things change so incredibly quickly when they're infants. So if you have a week to hang out with this baby and it's the first week, here's what's going to happen. The baby's going to take their first crap, and it's going to be disgusting and gigantic. It's called the first meconium. And if you weren't around for that, it's like tar, and it fills up an entire diaper, sometimes sneaks outside the diaper and is all over you and the person who takes it's your first dump. They take a huge first dump. So that's what happens on the first day. You're always going to remember that.
Yeah.
The next 6 days, like there's no manual, and you leave the hospital and you're like, oh God, where is, even your wife is too, like, where is everyone? How are we supposed to do this? And you don't have all of the resources that you had before. So you're literally writing your own manual that first week. And I think a lot of dads have been through that part, but really it's this like fog where you're trying to make sure you get enough sleep. You probably don't remember as much as you could because you're not well rested. And then after the first week, you move into the like, okay, what's our sleep schedule going to be? And then it usually takes 3 to 4 months before you get into like a normal space where you're sleeping through the night. So it is an incredibly disruptive, schedule-wise moment for definitely for the wife, but there's no reason why the husband shouldn't be part of this as well. Because as you're doing this, you're learning how to cope with and how to write this manual that you have for the child. And I don't think that the manual should be specifically written by the mom all the time. In fact, I wouldn't want to if I were the dad, because down the road, I think you're always going to be the guy who wasn't there when they wrote the manual.
True.
Yeah, well, and I think that there are maybe many, men and women who have had that experience that you just talked about. The dad wasn't there when the manual was written, and they had some impact. So I think it's a really important point. And if you're listening, then I'd say, if you have this opportunity, take it while you can, because I think that's very important. I'm actually in the middle of what you're talking about right now. So I've got 5 kids. The 5th one just came April 23rd, and so she's a little over 4 weeks old. But now with 5, and we're also in a blended family situation. So there's a whole lot of dynamics going on. So it's certainly very challenging. And then I think about you, and obviously fast forward now, you said your daughter is 16, your son is 13. And so, but you're also incredibly, I would imagine, busy. You've got a lot going on. You've got your career, which hopefully you're happy with where you're at and the things that are happening now. It can probably be very challenging. So is there if you are looking back, anything that you've learned through that time that you maybe even apply now, or even that you think of that's tremendously valuable to help somebody who is maybe in the thick of that, that could manage or navigate those times better?
The one thing I would say is that every period is equally great for its own unique reasons. I think it's very hard to remember that first month as being great because you're not getting sleep. Honestly, you may be in better shape this time around because you've got zone defense. I mean, if you've got 5 kids, I'm assuming some of them are older than 8, right? Like you've got some older kids.
12, twin 10-year-olds, a 7-year-old.
Okay. So the 12 is probably taking on either some sort of maternal or paternal responsibilities with this child. Am I right?
A little bit.
Okay. A little bit, like enough to be like, hey,
we can trade off. Here you go. Here's the baby. Hold the baby for a little bit. Absolutely.
That's a huge plus though, right?
Absolutely. Huge plus.
I think that each stage has its just great, wonderful things that you wouldn't trade for anything in the world, including that first bit. They open their eyes for the first time, they smile, they say a name, they make a noise that you call it a word, even though it's not a word. They fart and you think it's funny. They see you smile and they mirror your smile, even though they're not smiling. You don't care. It's like the greatest smile ever. And then when that goes away, you're kind of sad to miss that. But then, oh my gosh, they're walking. They're giggling even louder. They are, they're exploring. And then you miss that part. But oh my gosh, now they can wipe their own butts. And then so that's its own stage. And it goes all the way into, here's what I'll tell anybody. It goes into puberty, teenage years. There is a stigma that, once your daughter's a teenager, better watch out. This has been arguably my favorite phase for my kids, has been their young adulthood. So the one thing I will say is, if you allow yourself to enjoy it all, it will all be enjoyable.
Yeah, well said.
I want to ask you, what's the biggest challenge you've had to overcome in your dad journey?
Probably most recently, just when you learn about the emotional lives of kids who become teenagers, it's, I think it's exercising empathy instead of trying to fix things. So if your kid has a tough day at school, instead of being like, who's the kid who did this to you? Who's the parent who did this to you? I'm going to go to their house and I'm going to Papa Bear this situation. Kids don't want that. They want you to understand that it sucks and say, man, I'm sorry, that sucks. And that's never been my personality. I've been a fix it kind of guy. And so that has taken me several years to learn. And I don't know how much damage I did before by not doing that and making them think that if there was ever anything wrong, that here I come to save the day. Letting them sort of sit in the suck, if you will, has been a challenge for me.
What was the moment or the situation that brought about that realization that you said, oh, you know what, I need to not fix it? Either the awareness for yourself, but also recognition of the difference it makes for your kids.
Well, they get noticed, pointed out. Sometimes, I wouldn't say teased, but sometimes razzed a little bit for the fact that they have a YouTube family. That's by the way, that's its own set of problems that's on me. And I'm sure I've screwed my kids up in some way because of this. We've tried to give them as normal a life as possible, but there is no doubt that all three of us have screwed our kids up, and that's a leading candidate for how I've done it. But instead of, I remember part of that was I think I was trying to defend myself and the career choices that I'd made by trying to fix it, instead of saying, man, that really sucks. That's not fair. I'm sorry that you're going through that. And that was a situation, I'd say about a year and a half ago. And it was interesting because we've been able to have more open conversations about it since then, about growing up and about being a part of a unique family that we hadn't had before, because I was just going straight to trying to fix it and saying, this isn't a problem. I'm going to solve it right now.
So what difference did that make, you think, for your kids as you're making that shift?
I think that they're more willing to express themselves by a long shot, both of them, whether it happened to them or not, seeing that this is a place where your feelings are not discounted by us going and trying to solve them. Your feelings matter. They're valid, and we should all sit here and learn from them. Yeah.
I just think that's such an important and powerful point, especially for dads, I feel, right? I think dads by nature, we are the fixers, right? We got to take this, we got to make it right, and we got to move on and make sure our kids have what they need. And so I remember we had Jim White. He's a coach for parents, and in particular focusing on the teen years, and talking about how important that connection with teens are. And empathy was one of his 3 foundational skills. So I just, certainly from your lived experience, it's certainly very powerful. But even what Jim was sharing about that empathy piece, being able to have them feel safe to share and open up. And I imagine most dads want that, but at the same time, they have this challenge of wanting to fix. And so what it started with making that shift to just allowing them to open up and not fix it. That sucks. I'm really sorry you're going through that, and then working together. So certainly very powerful. Ed,
Yeah,
I'll turn it over to you.
I'm loving the energy. And we're coming down to the end pretty soon, so I want to make sure I get one or two conversation pieces in. I want to ask Penn, what do you believe is the most important practice dads need to work on to build strong, healthy relationships with their children?
Being present, not just there, but there and engaged when there's family time. So, this should go without saying, but put your phones down. If you're watching a game, turn off the game. Get away from as many screens as possible and just be there, because the act of simply being there is greater than anything that you could do or say or show off or, making them laugh is great, but it's not as important as just being there.
Thanks for listening to today's conversation with Penn Holderness. Now, if there's one thing I hope you take away, it's this. The early days of fatherhood really matter. Being present, making the most of your time with your child, and investing in those first weeks and months can shape your relationship for years to come. If you found this episode helpful, the best way to support the show is by following or subscribing wherever you listen, leaving us a review on Apple Podcasts, and sharing this episode with another dad who could benefit from it. It really does help us reach more fathers. And of course, if you are expecting a baby or know someone who is, please be sure to download our free paternity leave checklist. It's at dadcentral.ca/paternity leave. It's full of practical tips to help you make the most of these early days with your growing family. So thanks again for listening. We look forward to seeing you next time. And as my co-host likes to say, remember to give yourself grace.